everyone. Welcome to Life Mastery TV, your source for inspiration, empowerment, and fulfillment. Hi, Shelley. I wonder if you could turn off your camera, please. Thank you. Your source for inspiration, empowerment, and fulfillment. My name is David Macleod, and I am your Life Mastery Coach, author of the wonderful little book, A Life to Die For. And I'm also one of the co-authors in the best-selling series, The Wellness Universe Guide to Complete Self-Care. And as you will learn a little later, I'm also one of the co-authors of an upcoming book that we'll talk about during this episode, which is number 196, Transcendence in Practice. So we often talk about transformation. Any of us who are in the personal growth space, who are looking to improve ourselves, transformation seems to be a key word. And while that is important, we also wonder, most of us, what we're supposed to do once the transformation is complete. Well, for many of us, the next step is often just another round of transformation, even if it might be on a different topic or a different aspect of ourselves. But the main thing is we're constantly seeking to transform. And one of the questions that we might ask ourselves, are we feeding some kind of negative message to ourselves with all this desire for transformation? Do we maybe have the mindset that we must keep on improving? Do we unconsciously believe that we're not good enough as we are? When are we done? When have we done enough? When are we enough? You know, these are not trivial questions, and they're not easy to answer either. But that's what we're here for today, is to help out. Sooner or later, we all want to just live our lives, right? And so we want to express and experience the fullness and the truth and the magnificence of who we really are without being concerned about what other people think. So this leads us right into the topic of transcendence, which is exactly what we're here to talk about today. So I've invited the lead author of the upcoming book, Find Your Voice, Save Your Life, number 4, Transcendent Men, Real Stories. And he's going to be sharing his perspective and wisdom about this topic. My guest is a Reiki master, polarity therapist, RYSE practitioner. I'm sorry, he'll have to explain what that means. A theta healer practitioner and an author who empowers clients to transform and grow through multiple modalities with a combination of light, deep touch, sound, intention, and crystals. And as you can see, this beautiful, handsome man is here. Please welcome Scott Holmes to the show.
Hi, thank you very much, David. Good to see you.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for joining me today, Scott. I'm glad we were finally able to make this happen.
It's been a while in the making, and I'm sure it's not going to be the last time we do this.
No, I think we have a lot to talk about, as we found out during the preamble before the show started. a lot of little secrets that we can share with each other, because I think we've been on something of a common path for sure.
Absolutely.
And I'm curious about your path, actually. And I know you have shared this in other venues. I'm curious about what maybe you can describe for us a little bit about what happened in your life that got you to the point where you wanted to do personal growth and get to this place of writing a book about transcendence.
Yeah, that's quite a story. Much like your story, and you've always made a point of saying, well, I just did it. I didn't think there was much to it, right? Married, for some reason, my camera keeps cutting out. I'm not sure the why of it. So I'm going to keep talking as I go through this. Married at 20, 3 kids by 25, 3 jobs, 3 kids, and walking through it. My youngest daughter became ill, herpes encephalitis, which we brought her to the hospital, and she almost died from it. It stopped about this short from killing her. It left her alive, but it left her multiply handicapped. We had her home for 3 years before she was. Massachusetts is one of the few places that have pediatric nursing home beds, and she was there, and she was in a 62 child unit, and they were absolutely marvelous, absolutely marvelous. Took great care of her, wonderful quality of life. Hardest decision we ever had to make, my wife and I, as parents, to give up our child. And she was 3 years old then. She got sick at 15 months old, so we had her home for 2 years before that happened. Of course, once or twice a week down to 45 minutes down, 45 minutes back. We always did everything. Think of nursing home care if it's your parent. You're there all the time. You're doing their clothes. You're taking care. You're bringing it to doctors. In the meantime, my wife, at 30 years old, was diagnosed with breast cancer, and so she had surgery, lost her left side, chemo, radiation, everything through it, and she ended up being a 30-year survivor. 30-year survivor of breast cancer. It metastasized, came back again. We went through FDA studies. The litany is long and long and long, and it's a roller coaster for anybody who's ever been through cancer. It's never truly goes away. And even if you never get cancer again, the fear never goes away. I lost her 5 years ago after a 30-year battle. And to kind of let you know about my wife, we had been dealing with the head of the at Mass General Hospital, and he had developed the breast cancer clinic. When the last time we saw her, she walked in and she apologized to him.
And why would she apologize?
Because she didn't. She said, "I can't do it anymore."
Oh, I see. Yeah.
And so 2 weeks later, she passed. So in doing that, I, as an adult, was a caregiver and a caretaker my entire adult
for most
life.
of your life, yeah.
Most of my life, that was my job, whether it was with my daughter or with my wife. My mom was an incredible caregiver. She raised 4 kids. My dad was of the old style. He was in the Air Force. So when he came out to private, he worked and then he came home. And that was it until the weekend. So my mom did everything, raising kids, doing everything inside the house, outside the house. So I understood it. When my wife passed, it left me just void. And I had to rediscover who I was, because I was that caregiver for so long. And the intensity of it waned depending on what crisis was going on, So a buddy of mine said, "What do you truly want to do?" And I said, "I want to go travel. I want to travel." And he said, "Okay, let's go." So he was the best man at my wedding. We spent 17 days in Europe, Germany, Czechoslovakia, Czech Republic, Slovakia, Austria. I don't know why this darn thing keeps going off. I've never had a problem with it. I don't know.
Don't worry about it. Just keep talking.
Okay.
I'm sure the recording will capture your voice perfectly.
25. We drove ourselves 2,500 miles doing Airbnb. We 8 countries, 17 days, living out of each other's pockets. On my 60th birthday, we were in southern Germany. I said, "I want to do something special for my 60th birthday." He said, "Okay." So we had breakfast in Germany, we had lunch in France, and then we had dinner in Switzerland. That was a celebration of my 60th birthday, which is pretty cool, I thought.
That's
and that was a
cool,
gift he gave me. So I wanted to travel always like that. And so after that, we traveled 17 days to Cambodia, Thailand, Vietnam. The year after that, I went to Singapore and Malaysia. And that was, you talk about the other side of the world and understanding that people live well, they just live differently. And having that kind of understanding, that kind of open-mindedness. When you travel, this is just driving me crazy, and I am so sorry. And
maybe this is something that we're supposed to transcend.
The frustration part of it, yeah.
Well, we can transcend our dental medication anyway.
Nicely put. Nicely put. Oh, that's funny. Dental medication. So, in doing this and doing the travel, um, I had gone to a medium and started. I'd done yoga since I was 50, so I'd been doing it for 10, 12 years. Got into meditation and didn't realize how well meditation just it's amazing as far as transformation and bringing you to a place that you weren't before.
Right.
Allowing, slowing everything down. My life was always hectic. My life was always fast paced. And I don't know about you, but I have a feeling you are fairly high energy, and it's always constantly moving,
Right.
and it allows me to really. This did not do this before. It really allowed me to find out who I was. So I
So
traveled
that
all
was
those miles.
right.
Go ahead.
So that was quite a journey then. I mean, so a long time spent as a caregiver,
Yeah.
and then when that came to its unpleasant end, you find yourself wondering, who am I and why am I here? And so really the last few years of your life have been about getting more clarity about those questions. And I imagine some of the answers were already there for you, but as you are doing your work to find out more about who you are and why you're here, you know, you've got a pretty long resume, or not, I won't say resume, but you've got a long list of things that you do. Did you learn all those things after the passing of your wife, or did you learn them while she was still alive? Like, for example, the Reiki and the RYSE and all that stuff.
Yeah, it's Reiki is with the Reiki was after right after my wife. I had always been curious about it and went and did it, and have gone through three other more classes. Uh, I teach my clients, just tools for help healing themselves. Um, it was everything was after he passed.
Right.
Um, it's that learning. The term lifelong student, as you are.
Mhm.
Curiosity has always been part of what I do, what I am, how I am, and I've
Right.
really the travel is a part of that. The the learning about all the different modalities, uh, it just made sense. I was told when I first started this journey that when you go into the healing modalities, into the energetic modalities, everything's all over the place. There's no A, B, C, D. You don't follow that. You follow your heart. You follow your curiosity. You follow what's next, and it's led me to all of those modalities.
Right. And so now you've written one book already, or at least one, one about grief, which I know had to do with the passing of your wife. So you wrote that book, and is that what kind of led you into writing this new book about transcendence?
Yes, yes, it is. Laura, who's the publisher at Brave Healer
Mhm.
Productions, who put the book out with Sacred Death. The whole process for me was healing, being able to tell my story in a really understandable way.
Right.
I don't know about. I think we've talked about this before, but when you write, millions of people may read it, but the ones you're concerned about are your family. You kind of look at them and say, well, how was it? Was it any good? It's what you care about, and those are the ones you kind of worry about. But bringing that, I realized that men didn't really have a whole lot of voice. If you ask 10 guys to come into a group and just to share everything, spill their guts out, you're going to get no volunteers for that. Guys aren't great that way generally, and it's I saw such a need for that expression. I tried to get men together for a breast cancer support group. In other words, they were taking care of their wives. They were taking care of most of the household duties, usually unfamiliar to them. And now that their wife is going through chemo and radiation and all that, the head of Mass General was trying to get a men's group together. I looked nationally. There is one group who is one guy who kind of sort of does it. and I said, wait a minute, you want somebody to travel an hour and a half into Boston to sit for an hour, hour and a half, and spill their guts to other guys they don't know about their feelings. Not a real good group that's going to volunteer for that, let me tell you.
That's right. I think, yeah, I've had the same experience. When you ask men, yeah, let's get together in a circle and share our feelings. No, I don't think so. But when you talk about let's just get together and be men, that's a different kind of energy. And don't talk about feelings. That might come up later. We know, you and I already know that the whole question of feelings is something that is extremely important, both for men and women, to be able to learn the vocabulary and to share the truth of what's going on in their heart and their soul. But men have been systematically conditioned over the course of, I want to say hundreds of years, maybe longer, not to share their feelings, not to express that kind of stuff. And in fact, the only real emotion that men are allowed to express is anger. And it comes out in the form of violence, warfare, and all these other kinds of things. Well, that's not a very healthy way to be. Men also experience love, joy, and sadness just like everybody else does. The problem is they're not allowed to talk about it, at least not in polite society.
Not in polite society, correct.
Yeah. So, yeah. And so, I've had many, many circles of men. And like I said, when you just invite them in to maybe learn their purpose or to become better men, to become more valuable to the people that they love, that's when you're going to attract them in.
Exactly.
And then once you get them there, you can say, all right, well, one of the reasons that you're having challenges with your life is because of this conditioning that we were just talking about. And so the first thing we're going to do here is we're going to develop a little vocabulary of feelings. Now, I know it's uncomfortable for you, but that's what we're going to do. And we'll just teach each other. We'll just learn. We'll just teach each other. And before you know it, I'll tell you, men who show up there, who stick around for more than one meeting, generally don't want to leave afterwards.
Exactly. Because they don't get that anywhere else in their life.
That's right.
Yeah. Or haven't got that anywhere else in their life.
That's right. Yeah.
And that
freedom. Well, so kudos to you for wanting to write a book that's really for and about men. So why don't you just tell us a little bit about the book, what it's about, why you're doing it, and what kind of people you have writing in that book.
Thank you for that part. It's called Find Your Voice, Save Your Life 4, because it's the fourth in the series by Diana Leader. And it's Transcendent Men, real stories. The kind of men. We interviewed about 55 gentlemen throughout the US and abroad. And there was such a commonality. Those who through their life, they had challenges all the way through their life, or they didn't like where they were, and they needed to get through it. They needed to change. They knew that something had to change, and so they found that mechanism, whether it was through AA or learning about coaching, learning about themselves, doing shadow work. We have a shamans, we have massage therapists, we have Scott Bell. That story of his, where he literally rode his bike around the perimeter of the United States.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
That's pretty amazing. I consider a bike ride about 2 miles, and that's about it.
Yeah, right.
I mean, when we were in Europe, we drove 2,500 miles. That's biking, not motorcycling, bicycling around. And that's only, what, a third of the way around the perimeter.
I don't even know what the perimeter of the United States is. It's got to be close to 10,000 miles, I would think.
I would think it was 10. I think it might be 10. But it's an amazing story. And and he did it and does it, and he helps men to do that. Brings men in by getting on a bike and doing that physicality.
That's
So
beautiful.
the transcendence part is transcending or ascending above the problems that you've had in your life, about those crises, all of those things, and transcendence. You brought up one of the questions, and that was, when's enough enough? But this is like change, constant. Every day we change, no matter
Right.
what.
Mhm.
The wave, the vibration you're on, where you are. Even if you do the same thing every single day, you're not going to be able to do as many push-ups every day as you did before, or hopefully you build on it. But some days you're good, some days you're bad, some days you've eaten, some days you haven't slept. Who knows?
That's right. Yeah.
So it's that change that really helps you, elevate you. And if you're just consistent with it, it's very slowly, very slowly, very slowly. And when you start doing it, it's kind of it's ritual. It becomes a ritual, and I say ritual rather than habit. Habit is something you don't do without thinking. I put my
Right.
keys
Okay.
down on the table, and I don't think about it. Right?
I haven't thought
You don't
about it
think.
that way before, but that's a good distinction. I'm glad you mentioned that.
Thank you. But when you're doing things intentionally, with intention, and again I say ritual because in the morning I do a ritual. I do yoga. I do meditations. I do
Sure.
cleansing,
Yeah.
clearing, self-clearing. But it has to be with intention. If you go to just do it, may or may not get done. Who knows? And it's like half-assing it. It's like painting a
That's
wall
right.
and leaving streaks.
Right.
So it's in doing that, you're constantly establishing a base for the day, and in doing that
Mhm.
ritual and having that kind of presence, that kind of understanding, and then you kind of work your day up from there. And transcendence is a great word because everybody can debate what it means. Um, you have ascended masters, and they're transcendent. Christ, Buddha, whoever. Um, I, Trust me, mine is about this big. The transcendence, Don't go there.
Right.
And then it's you just try to build on it. And with
Yeah.
you're curious about people. You engage people. You are constantly looking at people, and you have that curiosity. And that's the same thing that inspires growth. While you'll always be young, no matter what maladies you may have within your body, your physical body, you're always going to grow. You always will, because you have that
Well,
spark
thank
of
you for
life.
that. I mean, yeah, sometimes it doesn't feel that way, I have to admit, especially as I'm approaching my 70th birthday coming up. I know it's hard to believe, but that's true. But anyway, what I wanted to say is, so I was fortunate to be one of the 55, and I guess I got chosen, so because I'm in the group, and so I'm excited about this. But as you say, you've already identified it. You talked about, yeah, Christ was a transcendent, Buddha was transcendent. And how do we, as mere mortals, even dare to consider ourselves transcendent? What is it that we are doing? And I think that's where my challenge has been in relating to that title. But it's been a good challenge. It's been a challenge that leads me to, as you say, ask more questions and start looking at what might be true for me. But I think the fact of the matter is, all of us have transcended something. Whether it's a massive, enlightenment or not is not really the point. The point is we have all moved beyond a certain level of consciousness into a new level of consciousness. And now we're talking about the continuation of that growth into another level of consciousness. To me, that's what transcendence means. It's a process. It's not an end state. The same way as enlightenment itself. I don't see that as an end state. I see it as a process of becoming more illuminated, shall we say.
Illuminated. And it's like trying to define happiness. Well, is happiness the goal, or is it the byproduct?
Yeah.
living who you are, of living
Yeah, that's a
the
good question.
life you
Yeah.
want. You know, I've always considered happiness to be a byproduct of doing what you're meant to do, and
Yep.
you get that feeling of joy, and you go, yeah, that's kick-ass.
I think that that's a good point that you're making here. Um, so you're talking about when your identity and your purpose are kind of aligned, when one stems from the other. And in fact, I think it's the identity that leads to the purpose, not the other way around. Although if you're on the wrong path of purpose, you may discover, well, that's not really who I am. So you might know who you are not by being on the wrong path. So you're when you are aligned with a purpose that is true to who you are, I believe you are absolutely right. That is the state of joy that we all seek to find. And it's right there. All we got to do is know who we are. And then when we know who we are, we focus on doing the right things to express the truth of who we are. That's
And when we,
ultimately what it boils down to.
yeah, and when we find men like that, and as we've talked, they want to share that. They don't just keep it to themselves. Like, oh, I've got
My secret,
like,
yeah.
your secret. Just much like you expand the knowledge. You give out to people. You want to help people. How many of those gentlemen that are in our group that are writing are coaching, are teaching, are helping other people? Virtually all of them.
Yeah.
And if they aren't, they're going to do that with their stories. And that's that teaching part. And that's when you know you've gotten to a certain level that
Yeah.
you want to give back. You want other people who are maybe going through that same thing. You want to give back to them, to be able to enable them, to be able to help them heal, to grow. And that's the similarity in almost everybody that we have in this group of 23 men. It's amazing, absolutely amazing that we have this kind of power in this book, in the stories. For those of you out there who want real, this book will give you real. It's real stories about men, their emotions. We have them. We have them. It took me about 55, 58 years to find my emotions. The distance between my head and my heart is only that far, but I traveled far and wide to find it, man. I traveled far and wide to find it. It took me that long.
That's right.
I'm just a really, really slow learner, by the way. Uh,
Well, I don't think that's true. I don't think that's true, Scott. And I get that you're being facetious with that, but I'd like us to just be careful about what we say, because sometimes, if I say I'm a slow learner, then maybe in my subconscious belief system, that's actually true for me. And so therefore I impede the ability of information to come into me. If, on the other hand, I say I am open to all information that comes my way, and I start to believe that and I incorporate it, well, what happens is information starts coming, and I can actually, somehow assimilate it. So I'm challenging you because I want to make sure that all my listeners know I would challenge them too, and I challenge myself all the time. When I hear myself making a thought like that, I really do try to stop it in its tracks before it gets any energy and any stickiness,
Yeah. No, I was just.
But I appreciate that you were making it as a joke, and I will say that. But for the purpose of the other people who might not know that,
I love the clarification because we are what we say we are.
That's right.
And what we believe we are, which stripping down all the crap that we carry. I mean, as coaches, as healers, as however you want to, as guides, as whatever you want to describe us as, really what it's about. It's just stripping away what doesn't belong anymore. All those stories we tell ourselves, all those stories we've lived, and all the emotions, just strip them out. All of a sudden we look in the mirror and go, oh, I know that guy. And I right now I'm finding who I am. I much like you talked about flying. I always wanted to be a builder. I always wanted to create. I always wanted to be a writer. I always wanted to teach. And now at this point in my life, I'm able to do that.
Yeah.
And it's fulfilling that dream and that purpose I kind of understood when I was a teenager, 15, 16, and 17. And now I'm living that life.
Yeah. You know, it's your journey was a fascinating study for me, because on some level you went through this very, very, I'm sure, very painful grief process that probably lasted maybe the entire time that you were being a caregiver for your wife, but certainly it became very poignant at the end. And one of the things that I have learned about people, men in particular, is that we tend not to seek help or look for ways of growing or expanding unless we are in some kind of a crisis.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah, and that's kind of a sad thing, I think, really.
And I find that women, when they have a problem, they talk it out right then and there. Bang, done.
Yeah,
They
exactly.
talk to their mother, their sisters, their cousins, their girlfriends. They talk it out. They get everything, and they get all the information, and they resolve it. Guys just kind of go, I'll just stuff that right down there. Okay,
Yeah,
I'm not going to talk about it because it's uncomfortable.
it's uncomfortable.
And,
Yeah,
and unless they bottom out on their isms, no matter what the ism is, and we've all met people who have them, whether it's alcohol, sex, drugs, whatever that is. When they bottom out on it and can't go any further, is the only time they look for help, which is kind
yeah,
of sad. I think one of the things in this book is going to be, we kind of a subtitle was a model for masculinity. So many young people have not had any kind, look at it, any kind of masculine role model, or had the wrong one in their lives, and how that defines them, how they're going to be men. That's sad. And so a lot of this is kind of modeling that men can be vulnerable, men
right.
can have feelings, men can um, they're allowed to express grief, right? They're allowed to express all of those things. Very,
Yeah.
very tough to do, but let's always put them in a position where they can express that.
Right. And I think part of the problem is we've had this rather strange model of manhood for many, many years. This macho image. The guy has to be hard, tough, he can't cry, and he's got to defeat his enemies immediately, sort of thing. That's the kind of the Western hero, the war hero. Well, the word hero is going to show up many, many times in that part of the conversation.
Oh yeah.
But when you think about it for a moment, consider someone like Mahatma Gandhi. Mahatma Gandhi would certainly qualify as a hero in most people's books, even though he did not resort to any kind of violence of any kind. You might say the same thing about Martin Luther King, and there's plenty of other people that you can identify who qualify as that kind of person, a man who happened to be so well in tune with all of his beingness that he showed up in a whole new way that can be a model for the rest of us.
Yeah. Yeah. You're absolutely right. And that's where I find, I'm going to just digress a little bit, in that when I was going through all of that, I always felt I was carrying armor.
Mm-hmm.
I built castle walls in order to get through the day, to
Yeah.
defend my house, my home, my family, my girls. I had armor on, and every year it got thicker and thicker and thicker. And the amount of energy it takes to move that around, to carry that with you, amazing.
Right.
And
Yeah,
I often
armor ain't light.
it
It's
ain't light.
heavy.
It sure is. And I was always wondered why people couldn't get in. Well, I
Mm-hmm.
had built up all of this armor to get through the day, to be able to take care of my wife, to take care of my daughter, to take care of the family, to do everything I needed to, and shield myself from all the emotions and all the distractions. And not until my wife passed, I was going through intense therapy, um, psychotherapy, and it started coming off layer, but it's just like peeling an onion. and the castle walls came down, 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 down. And it wasn't until then that I could actually make connections with people. I always wanted to, I didn't know how. And
Right.
so once I took all those down and took all those off, I became a different guy. You talk about anger. There was no anger or frustration. All of those things that are the negatives, and I was always kind of bigger than life because I was a bull in a china shop and I'd barrel through everything.
Right.
But I
Yeah.
thought that's what you were supposed to do, right? You're supposed to barrel through life and push through life in order to get
That's
through
right.
it.
Yeah.
And,
Life is supposed to be a struggle, and I'm supposed to knock down every wall that I come in contact with.
oh, absolutely, absolutely. And so the armor gets thicker. But taking that all off, I realized that I'm stronger. I am stronger by being vulnerable, by having that energy source right inside of me, that life force, that godlike force, that part of God that how it always gets referenced. And I found out I was an accidental Buddhist because in Eastern religion, God is within. In Western religion, as we're taught in Catholic, Protestant, or God is without. He's an entity without. In Eastern religion, God is within you. And so I found out I was an accidental Buddhist. What? All these years I've been a Protestant.
That sounds like the title of a book, by the way. The Accidental Buddhist.
Well, it might be the title to the chapter I'm writing. So
good.
So, but it truly was that I felt at home when I was in Southeast Asia, in Malaysia, Singapore, in all those Buddhist temples. I felt such a connection. I was in Bangkok in the Hall of the Golden Buddha. Now you think Golden Buddha, and he's only about this big, by the way. He's like 3 foot, 2 foot tall. But the power of it within that building, within that temple, was absolutely amazing for me. I sat there for half an hour and was just enthralled with energy from that, all the energy that is poured into there. And I just found out that I really I'm akin to the Buddhist religion. I understand what it is, and it's all about being the best person you can be. Period.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah.
And that's kind of what we all want to do, right?
Well, what can anybody else ask of you?
Exactly. But being that, as you said, all those things that we're told we have to do and have to be and what to do, we lose that part of it. We try to bend ourselves and twist ourselves into those shapes in order to be who we're told we should be. So it's...
Well, I think I really like what you were talking about, peeling away the layers and the armor, and it's just getting, becoming more and more open and transparent and vulnerable. But the fact of the matter is, we still live in a world where there are people out there who will take advantage of you if you become too transparent and too vulnerable. And sometimes, while I really like the idea of having no armor whatsoever, it may be that I still need to be able to go out and grab it now and then when I need it. I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting to defend your family and your loved ones and to protect them and make sure that they're safe. I think that's a beautiful thing. I think that's kind of the essence of masculine energy, really, is the protective energy. Whereas the essence of the feminine energy is more about nurturing and loving and helping to grow. And we need both of them. You can't just have one without the other. That creates chaos.
You're absolutely right.
I like Will's comment. He says, "Armor with hinges." That's great.
I love that.
Yeah,
what I found was that energy that I had within me, that kind of life source that was stronger than all the armor that I had on before. And it's almost acknowledging your light body, depending on how you view, our soul and everything else. That the armor I didn't need on a daily basis. I didn't need to be that,
That's right.
I didn't need to get on that horse and have the shield and the and the lance and just charge through everything and everybody, no matter the situation.
Yeah,
But that
no,
was
that's
a
absolutely right.
seldom used.
Yeah, that's a really good point. We don't have to stay in our armor all 24/7. And in fact, it's better if we don't.
Oh,
We
yeah.
have to emerge, show our true self. As they say, I think they say this in Japan: open the kimono. Basically, reveal yourself, reveal the truth, become vulnerable, share your heart, share your soul. And men can do this, and you can do it without being a pussy.
Exactly.
I'm sorry for any women who are watching. When we use that term, we don't mean to insult women. It's just that's a kind of a terminology that has persisted for a long time.
Persisted for a long time, but it for any men that are listening to this, they understand it.
Yeah, that's right.
It just means you don't stand up for yourself. You're not willing to, gird through the fight.
That's right.
But,
yeah.
But I know plenty of women who will take you down in 2.3 seconds.
Yep. Without lifting a finger.
Oh yeah.
That's right.
My wife could cut a silence with a look. I'll tell you, she could
right.
just tear you apart. But when she wanted to, and that was not very often, but often enough that fear is a little fear is a good thing, right? In raising children in a relationship, just a little bit, just for that unpredictability. So transcendent can mean so many different things. When I looked at men and healing, it all went to religion. It went into they were all very religious texts, and I'm not a practicing Catholic anymore. I'm a kind of a fallen Catholic, but that's what I could find. That's the only thing I could find, and that's why this book is so important. Is it doesn't take away the spiritual, but it isn't focused on that. It's about real stories. So many people have gone away from the church or organized religion, or just don't practice it. But there is that understanding that we all want to do what's right. Anybody, when you travel the world, you understand that people want the same things. They want safety, security. They want their family to grow. They want that sense of peace. And no matter where you are in the world, that's all you want you want that for your family. You want that for yourself. And so we all look at it slightly differently. We do it differently, but man, it's universal. And that's the thing when you talk to people around the world. The similarities are so much greater than the differences.
Oh, I agree. Yeah, that's an interesting point, actually, because, well, we have this capability within our human psyche, if you like. I call it the ego mind. And the ego mind is very, very skilled at pattern matching. That's one of its primary abilities, actually. It can recognize, given any set of circumstances that happen to be in existence right now, the ego mind can spot one tiny little thing out there and say, oh, that reminds me of such and such that happened way back in 25 years ago. And so consequently, when it sees that one thing amongst all the other things that are present, it's alerting you to a danger that doesn't even exist today, but is reminiscent of something in the past.
Yep.
And that's kind of what we're talking about here. Is most of the time, you mentioned that it's good to have a little fear. Well, fear really is just the ego mind trying to keep you safe, and it's trying to keep you safe from something that really isn't even a threat.
Yep.
That's what happens most of the time. So,
and as you know, fear is probably what limits most people most of the time.
Yeah,
just that fear of whatever
right.
they perceive, and they're amazed when they take that step and nothing happens.
Yep. And well, now Will just added another comment here. He said, transcendence can be about alignment with the soul. And I think that's precisely what we've been talking about here. Even though, you know, we don't necessarily want to put it into a religious context, it certainly is related to a spiritual context, which has to do with the soul. And I think ultimate transcendence really is transcendence of the ego mind, and then reconnection to the soul so that we can live the maximum, you know, expression of who we are meant to be.
Yep. Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. And not carrying all the baggage that we carry. You know, it's talked about as shadow work or
Right.
inner children or the traumas that we've gone through, but it doesn't, you know, it doesn't serve us anymore. When we were 8 and 10 and 12 and 15 or even 20 years old, those things helped us through that. When you're 60 plus years old, you can pretty much defend yourself. You don't need all of those. You don't need to drag that around anymore. You don't need
That's
all
right.
that weight. And that's part of the armor, I'm sure, that was taken off of me, was a lot of that baggage that I was carrying and a lot of those fears.
Yeah.
And now I have very few.
That's
or
nice.
less.
You've moved from feardom into freedom.
Ooh. You might have said that once or twice, I think.
I don't know. I heard it from another friend of mine. That's one of his signature speeches. But what I was thinking about here is, as we're talking about transcendence, sometimes I can see people imagining that transcendence means moving above all your problems and just no longer having to deal with them. And to me, that is actually spiritual bypass, which is a completely different kettle of fish. You mentioned shadow work. Shadow work is a way in which we can look at those qualities, characteristics, aspects, personality issues, everything else that we may not have wanted to look at before, that we've kind of pushed into the background and made them unconscious.
Right.
And that's really, and so shadow work is about, getting out like a cave spelunker, finding your flashlight and going into the darkness and looking around, not from a place of fear, but rather from a place of, what can I discover here? And what gifts are here to be learned and stuff. I remember when I first started doing shadow work back in, I guess, 2003 or so, it terrified me because I thought, if I reveal some of these dark things inside me, people are just going to hate me. They're going to run away. They're going to go running right over the hills. They'll never talk to me ever again.
Yep.
Well, what I learned, to come back now to your thing about vulnerability, what I learned was, as I got closer and closer to the darkness that was inside me, and I started shining a light on it and revealing it and sharing it with other people, what I actually did was deepened my connection with them. It didn't create separation the way I thought it would. It created connection, because when I did that, other people would say, oh shit, I have that too. Oh man, thank you for doing that work. Saved me the effort, sort of thing. But it also empowered people to recognize their own shadows and to look at their own darkness, not from a place of shame, but from a place of love and forgiveness and compassion. Makes a huge difference. So shadow work is critical. And it's, I believe, one of the primary steps toward transcendence, not something that you avoid in order to, to just live your life without problems.
Well, no matter what, it's still there. When you heal childhood trauma, I've worked with clients, and we've healed some severe childhood trauma. It doesn't go away. It doesn't just evaporate.
That's right.
You're going to carry that. What changes is the relationship you have with that trauma, how you perceive it, how you react to it, how loud the voice is in your head when it comes up and says, hey, look out, don't do that. You know what happened, when you were 6? Okay. So yes, you're going to carry that with you, but it's about the relationship. And when we elevate ourselves, when we get over what we're our crises or our problems or what we want to be, and we're kind of shedding these things. Where we see things from changes, so our perception of all those things change.
Yeah.
Looking at it from a different perspective, a different hill, a different whatever you want to say.
Exactly right.
It's about. And that's why when you pose that question about, hey, are you ever done and you just want to live your life and not worry about it? Well, every time you see it from a different perspective, you see something different. You see something new. You see something. You see that hill a little bit different. It's not as big as it used to be.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's really great stuff.
Yeah, it's like I tell my clients all right, when you're climbing a mountain, first you got to start out at the base of the mountain. And yep, that mountain looks pretty damn big. But, as Lao Tzu said, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. So you take that step, and that's one less step you have to take up that mountain. Now take 9 more steps, take 100 more steps. And when you get up there at 100 steps, stop and turn around and see how far you've come. That's the amazing thing about growth. It is there. And no matter how high that mountain might be, there's always, sooner or later, there's going to be more mountain behind you than there is in front of you.
I'm going to apologize because apparently it's not letting me share anything right now. Just died. I've never had this problem with my computer, but of course it's going to start now.
The thing is, was it coming back on its own before?
No,
it was not. You had to reshare. Well, here's what you can do if you're wanting to do that. I can riff for a bit. If you want to exit out and then come back in, you should just be able to join in.
All right.
You want to try that?
I will do that I'll be right back.
Okay. So, Will, I see that you put a comment in there. Healing trauma is also about gathering wisdom. Couldn't agree with you more. That is exactly true. And I think that's what we've been talking about here. The idea of doing shadow work. One of the things that I've learned about it is the deeper I go and the more I learn about those things that I never wanted to look at before, the more wisdom I have, the more learning I get, and I almost always find huge gifts embedded within the shadow that I was trying to avoid. It's a powerful, powerful process, something that a lot of people shy away from because of their fear of the unknown, but which, in my experience, as I learned, there's nothing to fear. And as a matter of fact, what I've noticed is as I get older and I do more and more of this shadow work, I'm finding that it's a kind of an adventure for me. It's curiosity. It's, oh my God, what am I going to find today? What amazing gift am I going to discover that I haven't seen yet? That's the beauty of doing this kind of work. And even if you happen to have the kind of trauma that requires you to go and look at the same thing over and over again, one of the things that happens is you always are going to see that same thing that you're looking at. You're going to see it from a different perspective, as Scott was mentioning earlier. And when you see it from a different perspective, then you will be able to maybe gather something that you couldn't gather before. So Scott, your camera's back on. That's great, but you're still muted. So you need to unmute yourself. There you go.
Here we are. Thank you. And for that, I apologize. Technology is a wonderful thing.
Yeah, technology is great when it works.
When it works.
Yeah. So I don't know if you caught what I was saying there, but I was basically amplifying and expanding on what we were talking about with the shadow work thing. But we're getting about 6 minutes or so to go, and what I want to do is I want to get back to we've talked about many different aspects of transcendence, which it's really been exciting. What I'd like to do is get back to this idea of keeping ourselves aligned with our purpose, keeping ourselves focused on what's in front of us and what we're supposed to be doing, while at the same time allowing ourselves to grow and support the universe in its growth.
And I do, and I really kind of preach this to my clients and really try to get them to do that. And that is what I call the rituals, the habits that you do every day, what you do when you get up or before you go to bed. That constant clearing, that continuity of because we change. We're not the same person in the afternoon that we were in the morning. We're not the same person tonight that we were now. We are constantly taking in different vibrations. We are constantly in contact with different things. There are different things we've read that affect us. We have different emotions. We ate something that really doesn't agree with us, and we spent the last 2 hours on the toilet. I don't know. So you're you're you you're not the same person constantly, and so if you practice those same techniques, those same things, that whether it's clearing, and I believe in clearing is probably one of the biggest things that we can do for ourselves, because it allows us to see emotionally, spiritually, energetically. We can see things much clearer, much simpler, without emotions just invading everything. All of those traumas that we've experienced, all those inner children that come out to play and tell you not to do things. We really need to have that as a constant in our lives. Whether it's, for me, it's yoga, it's in meditation, and clearing every day. And I clear a few times during the course of the day, and it just allows you to be who you are. So it's that continuity, and by doing that, you're able to kind of build upon it day after day after day.
So can you just be a little bit more specific about what you mean by clearing? Now, I know I have my own interpretation of that word, but not everybody will know what you mean. So if you could just describe that a bit, that would help.
What I've learned through polarity, through Reiki, energetically to clear your centers, your chakras, your energy centers, to be able to get them to function clearly, to be able to ground, to know that you're grounded. You know, you ever feel like you're going to blow away in the breeze and you're not grounded?
Only in a hurricane.
When you're trying to make decisions and you're not real sure, if you're not grounded, you're not going to make the right decision. Right. If you're not clear, you're going to make a different decision. You ever have one of those days where you make decisions and you go, what the heck was I thinking?
Yeah. Well, only all the time.
Yeah. But there's a clarity there that, so it's in clearing, you're doing it energetically so that you can bring everything back into alignment, so that you can stay present, so you can stay focused. That's really what I'm
present and focus. Very important words. And when you have both of those, presence and focus, and when we say focus, we're talking about, you're aligned with your purpose. You are spiritually, you've got your identity and your purpose together to that joy place that Scott was talking about before. When you've got that together and you're in alignment with your purpose, all of life just suddenly seems easier, and you can now feel more confident and more what's the other word I want to say here? Your values are clear to you, your confidence is there. I mean, and life just all of a sudden seems beautiful and magical.
And you're living through your heart center rather than your ego mind.
Yeah.
Thinking what's the best idea or what I should do, feeling it. And we often say that guys who are at this level, they feel what they're doing, and it feels good to them, and it's right. They know it's right, and it's aligned with who they are. So that's where in trauma when you go through all of this, that's where you'll get to when you get to the other side.
Right, and we're not recommending that people look for ways to find trauma. What we're just saying is, if it happens for you, try to see the gift in it, even if that's not possible in the moment. You know, as soon as you are able to get that grounded place against, look for the gift. Look for the gift that happened in every aspect of your life. And that will help you to feel more gratitude, more groundedness, more centeredness, more clarity, as Scott was saying. So Scott, this has been just an amazing conversation. I just want to thank you for being here. But before I wrap up, is there anything that you'd like to share with folks before we close out?
Well, yeah. The book that's been a year and a half in the making, Find Your Voice, Save Your Life, 4 Transcendent Men, Real Stories, will come out in August. We'd like all of you, and for those women who I've told about, they're like, oh, really? Men, there's some men out there like that? Really? And for those of you women who are out there who are out there, yes, there are guys out there that actually feel something. And yeah, they lead pretty amazing lives. And there is hope for everyone. For those who want to get to where they want to get to, higher, faster, stronger, but also to lead a better life.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Ooh. Well, with that, I want to just say again, Scott, thank you so much for being here. It's been my pleasure, my honor, and it's been just a really fabulous conversation. I mean, we've covered a lot of ground here in an hour, and I think we've been everywhere, man. We've been everywhere, man. Okay.
I was wondering if you're going to be playing that song. No.
Anyway, so I want to thank you all for being here on the live presentation, and those of you who are watching the recording, thank you for doing that. I'd like to remind you that you can find the recording of this and every one of my episodes on my website at lifemasterytv.com, life-mastery-tv.com. And I hope you enjoyed this presentation. In an hour or two, you may receive an email from Learn It Live platform asking you to review it. Please come back. Just, give us a review, 4 or 5 stars, whatever you can afford. That's very helpful because it helps us to spread the word and helps us to gain market share. Not that we're making any money here, but it's just a way of spreading the message and getting more people moving on this path of transcendence. And finally, I'd like to remind you all to remember what I call my life mastery mantra. It goes like this. I gratefully forgive the imperfect being I have been in the past. I gratefully accept the magnificent being I am right now. I gratefully welcome the evolved being I am becoming in each new moment. So until we meet again, thank you all for being here and joining us for this episode of Life Mastery TV. I wish you love, light, and blessings on your continuing journey, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.